Hi, welcome to my channel where we question everything. Today's topic is bits and pieces, and I thought I gathered another couple of articles that might be of interest to you. They are not long enough to really make a story out of it or in a video. So basically, this is a small summary on what is occurring in the world. And let's see if they are interesting or not. The first one I want to talk about, basically, you know that Germany and the rest of Europe has cut themselves off from Russian gas supplies. And this is supposed to be catastrophic for those countries because they are dependent on cheap Russian gas and oil. But I have also discussed it previously in one of my videos that when I worked, well, as you know, I live in South Africa, and South Africa was subject to sanctions in the old apartheid regime, and we were denied a lot of stuff and so on. But to the surprise of all of us is that we actually got everything that we wanted, and even more. It might have been a little bit more expensive, but at the end of the day, all these sanctions were sidestepped and circumvented, and basically trade went ahead as always, probably by third parties. But and I knew, and we knew that the American government knew about these circumventions. And you can also look at Iran. Iran has been sanctioned for how long? And they all survived, and they all circumvented the restrictions on sanctions. And effectively, basically, sanctions don't really work. It does not create the necessary regime change or change in government attitudes or policies. Basically, it only creates a loss for your own economy and the establishment of self-sufficient development in these sanctioned countries. And then, naturally, there's always a third party that make a nice buck out of the whole story. And when I looked at all the sanctions that Europe was implying onto Russia, I thought to myself, yeah, sure. There's going to be ways, find ways around that. And this also happened. We could see the typical technique was to transfer oil from Russian tankers to European tankers in the international water. And then suddenly the destination of that oil was not known and not connected to Russia anymore. And then the Russian oil was imported into Europe. And well, now we see also, politicians, like I always said, they lie. When they open their mouth, they lie. And the funny thing is that when they lie something and they talk to us about, say something that we would like to quote into our narrative, then suddenly those words are believable. Well, no. Whatever politician talks is a lie. It's just the level of lies that differ. And I'm sure that everybody knew about the gas story. And it has now been again confirmed by an Austrian energy executive that says that Vienna is still heavily dependent on Moscow supplies, despite the government claims otherwise. And that's outgoing head of Werner Steinegger of the energy giant Energie AG. And he's now leaving the company, so naturally he can open his mouth. He has no blowback from his statements, so he cannot be sort of cancelled or fired because he's leaving, in any case. Speaking to reporters on Wednesday, he said that statements that the reliance on the Russian blue fuel has been reduced to 20% are simply not true. Although the dependence on Russian gas has decreased, but not from 80 to 20%, as some federal politicians want to convince us, rather up to 40 to 50%. So they did reduce it, but not to the numbers that they are saying. Again, lying politicians. According to Steinecker, Russian gas, which is imported by Europe in detour, is then no longer called Russian, and we are talking about false labeling. That is 100%, he said. That's it. Just label it differently. You know, sometimes stuff is imported from China to South Africa and or any other countries, and then in our factories, it's just another label put on, and then suddenly it becomes a South African product. It always happens, all the time. In any case, he also said that the United States will continue to keep the gas cost for the region at a high level due to a 20-year take-or-pay contract. And what it actually means is that the LNG gas that is being transported from America to Europe are all subject to long-term contracts. These are not spot market prices. So it's not that suddenly, because gas prices are a lot, well, there is a general accusation by European politicians that America is making huge profits on the export of LNG gas to Europe. And we all should know by now that the price between American gas on American soil to the price of gas in Europe is about 5 to 7 times more expensive. That is sort of a general consensus. But the blame is always placed on American companies, which actually is not true. But I will get to it just now. The point here is American suppliers are supplying their clients with long-term contract. And if they don't take it, then they still have to pay for it. And these contracts are 20 years plus long. In any case, so just according to the Austrian Energy Agency, reported that the natural gas price in the country soared 190% in October in annual terms, and up by 5.6 compared to September. So you can see there's a significant increase. And now we come to the other section, and what I talked about is that, you know, why is it so that Europe is paying so much for their gas? According to the news I just talked about, the American suppliers have fixed contracts for 20 years long at a given price, and so forth, so forth. So it's not the supplier that can actually, or the supplier, no, not the supplier, the producer, or, I don't know, American, would they be classified as producer or suppliers? Because there's an intermediate company in between that actually has the contract with the American supplier. Yeah, supplier. Let's call him a supplier. Supplier 1, 2, 3, middleman. Yeah, okay. So let's call the American LNG supplier as a supplier. He has a contract with another company for long term, 20 years. And then this other company then ships or transports the LNG to Europe and then sells it to the European consumer, either via another company, or either the government, or either directly via its own subsidiaries to the end user. But since the price is now fixed between this middleman, this middle company with the Americans, he's still paying the 20-year contract price, which is a hell of a lot lower than the current gas prices. And the current gas prices, because Europe didn't want to go, were convinced by their advisors not to do long-term contracts, but to buy gas on the spot market. And I've talked about that before. The biggest one is the Netherlands TFT exchange, where they make spot price for gas. And so they are paying the current price. So then who is making actually the big profit? Now the politicians, would like, the Germans and Macron and French and so on, they would like to blame the Americans. But that unfortunately is not true. In any case, according to the executive vice president of the worldwide trading of Cheniere Energy, a guy called Corny Grindle, he's an American person. 90% of everything we produce is sold to third parties. And most of our customers are utilities. The Nels, the Endesas, the Naturgis, the Centricas, and the Engies of the world. And he was rattling sort of the names of big name European energy providers. Basically, like you said, all the intermediates that are making the huge profits are actually European countries. And Cheniere, which this year saw 70% of its export LNG, was delivered to Europe. And this was sold to these intermediates as the fixed price scheme based on American benchmark price, the dubbed Henry Hub. And basically what they are doing is the Cheniere contracts are based on 115% of the Henry Hub price plus 3%, $3. So whatever is 150% on this hub price, which is the price of gas in America, plus $3. So you can see it's not that huge profits or huge markups. It's not the Americans are actually making the profits. It's actually the European companies. And then they asked him actually, now the Europeans want to implement a price cap on gas in order to limit the price of the gas. And then he asked them what influence would have it on them. And they said it would have no impact on them because they sell it at the fixed price, which is a lot lower than what anybody can install. And the price cap will only influence the intermediates. Now there's a fear that the gas will go into the eastern markets, but there's a little bit of a problem with that. The problem is that the American LNG has no limitations on any end users. So if you buy gas LNG from America, you can basically transport it and resell it to any person in the world. But if you are buying it from Qatar and other suppliers, they have limitations or restrictions. If you buy from them as an intermediate, you have to tell them who you're going to resell it to. And thereby, the contract will be established that you have whatever gas you buy from Qatar, say let's say Qatar, you have to deliver it to the destination of which the contract was based. You cannot resell it to anybody else. So the only gas that can be rerouted on this scheme, if you don't want to use the price cap, then would be the American gas. You cannot do with any other gas supplier or producer. So what actually the Europeans should rather think about is not putting a price cap on the gas, but rather tax the extra windfall profits of these energy companies. They make these huge markup. They buy low, sell high. And in fact, some of the contracts have been during the COVID era. Some of these companies who had long-term contracts were making actually a loss of transporting LNG because the demand wasn't there. And the contract is you take it and you pay it. If you don't take it, you still have to pay for it. And then they were making huge losses of that. And then they sold these high long-term contracts to the bigger boys. And now the bigger boys bought them and now making these huge profit margins. So it's very, very beneficial to the European companies. And well, it's the same. Like Germany, the gas, the price of electricity is determined on the highest cost of production, which at this stage is gas. So the green energy and the nuclears and the coal based power plants are making huge profits, and now Germany wants to put a windfall tax on these industries in order to recover some of those excessive losses. So basically, Germany and the rest of Europe should put a similar tax on these other companies that make these huge windfall profits. And that would basically maybe stabilize the energy market in Europe. That's one of the solutions. Or the other solution is scrap the sanctions against Russia, rebuild Nord Stream 1 and 2, and let's reestablish everything that was done previously. Let's restore what it was for the Ukrainian war. Any case, I thought that would be a little bit interesting. So if you like what you heard, subscribe, tell your friend, spread the word, and until next time, cheers.